A pointless war. The global order, as we know it, is in suspense. In the early hours of Thursday, February 24, Russia launched a massive invasion of Ukraine, in an escalation of military aggression not seen in the world since 1945. As Russian tanks and missiles crossed onto Ukrainian soil, the United Nations implored Putin not to launch the attack. The principles of law and international relations that cost 2 world wars and countless lives appeared to be shattered. Events like the ones we are seeing now have become very strange since 1945. Pablo de Orellana, an expert on Russia and an academic of international relations and war conflicts at King's College University in London, tells BBC Mundo. What was a practice through the centuries, to invade your neighbor, became almost impossible in the second half of the 20th century. It went wrong. Look what happened to Saddam Hussein, he says. The expert recalls that violent annexations, since 1945, there have only been 3, Tibet, Western Sahara, and Crimea, the most recent, in 2014. It's very little for such a long period of time. And coincidentally, or perhaps not so coincidentally, Crimea and now Ukraine have been orchestrated by the same person, Vladimir Putin, he says. But what has led Putin to try to subvert the order that has ruled the world for the last decades? What are you looking for and what is behind your decisions? What does he want from Ukraine and the West? The answers are not entirely clear yet, however, its consequences can put the world as we know it in check. We are living without hesitation a setback of those rules and above all of the equal rights of the states. And this, if it is not responded forcefully, can have catastrophic results. Despite warnings and sanctions from the West, Putin has finally launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. How can this decision be understood? What's behind? For years, Putin has been seeking to impose his presence at the international level, and little by little he has been preparing for this. Previously, it had already taken pieces of territory from other nations, as it did with Abkhazia and Ossetia, in Georgia. And to prepare his troops for these raids and boost their morale, he not only modernized the Russian army, but took it into campaigns like the Syrian war, where they were well prepared for further action. What we see now, however, is another level. It has not been like those little annexations where Putin said he was going to protect a Russian minority in parts of Georgia or Ukraine. Now he is looking for much more, to control an entire independent and democratic country. To justify the invasion, Putin has used all kinds of arguments, from national security, to Ukraine's aspiration to join NATO, which is remote, to the existence of an alleged genocide or neo-Nazis in Ukraine. What is really behind the invasion? There are 2 sides to those arguments. The NATO thing, as a diplomatic strategy, was great, because it demanded from the US and Europe something that neither Washington nor NATO can promise, which is that Ukraine would not join the alliance, because it goes against their principles. It was actually a trap. Putin knew that he could never have been given what he wanted. But it served him to justify the invasion to Russian public opinion, to look good in the eyes of his people and blame the West. In his words, he told Russian television that this was a war that had been imposed on them, which is nonsense. The other point is that Putin practices a kind of nationalism called ethnic exclusivity. He firmly believes that the Russians will only be safe if they are under his control. For him, Ukraine and Russia are part of the same ethnic group, hence the argument for invading Ukraine, to protect that Russian-speaking population. That is a similar argument to the one used by Hitler in 1938 to invade part of Czechoslovakia, the protection of an ethnic German minority. It is the same logic, and it comes from the idea that ethnic groups are races, animals fighting for survival. And if there are people of other races in another country, they will kill them, because every race seeks to survive at the expense of the others. That is why it is very easy and very logical for their propaganda to claim that these Russians are in danger because they are not protected by us. That is the idea behind the alleged genocide argument, which is totally false, but which is valid within Putin's logic, in which you assume that you are going to be destroyed if you don't destroy yourself first. Faced with this situation, we can only pray that this man, who works so hard to be recognized worldwide, does not have any atomic thought in his mind.